Hey everybody, my name is Figment, and I decided to make a video for you all on what you might want to start prepping for sailing. Normally I only do guides for limited events such as leagues and Deadman, but I decided to do a full-blown video for this one as I've been getting a lot of questions about what to prepare. A few things first before we dive in. There will be a spreadsheet linked below with all of this information. Feel free to make a copy of it yourself. Now I understand the video ends there for some of you, however I highly recommend listening to me yap as I explain my reasoning for certain things and even include a few hidden tips. Figment from the future here, adding this in post. Apologies for the mediocre microphone and lack of sailing B-roll footage, as unfortunately most of my VODs from the beta got corrupted. Anyways, enjoy. There are four main things to take into consideration when using this sheet. First, the sheet is primarily for Ironman. A normal account can still use it, just know that raw cash will be king for you. Second, the sheet is focused on speedrunning and being over-prepared. I am racing to 99, so the sheet will have a similar tone. I've tried my best to separate some of the more niche and sweatier prep, which you will see later on. Third, the sheet assumes maxed secondary skills. I will not be covering any skill requirements such as construction, smithing, woodcutting, or mining. However, it is safe to assume that you will need a roughly equivalent construction level to your sailing level, as you can see in this picture. Lastly, the sheet is not complete, and it is likely that much of it changes by launch. It is a living document, meaning I will be continuing to add to and edit the sheet. Also, if you have any information that I am missing or I have wrong, feel free to send it my way, and I will happily update the sheet accordingly. Also, I shouldn't need to say this, but this is not a guide on how to train sailing. It is simply a video on what to prepare for sailing. Before we jump into the sheet, I wanted to bring something up that I haven't seen anybody else talk about. Jagex's Old School RuneScape team has a stage at MCM London, a Comic Con, on October 25th. This article by VergeMagazine has information that shows the stage details, which happens to be entirely about sailing. The article even mentions that part of the stage details includes launch information, so it is possible that we will get the launch date, not the release, on October 25th. This is all speculation though, so I could be completely wrong, but it does line up nicely. As for a release date, I predict the full launch will be on November 19th. Also, there will be a link to the Verge article in both the description below and in the spreadsheet. Okay, into the spreadsheet. Immediately we have the intro page, but I've already yapped about everything on here, so let's go into what I call the skill guide. I've essentially constructed a spreadsheet version of what happens when you click on a skill in the game. Get a list of all things that are currently known that are relevant to the skill, such as level requirements, build costs, quest unlocks, and other things of that nature. This does not include secondary training methods such as trawling for fish, hunting crabs, and other things outlined in the Sailing Resources blog, as these are not part of the core primary sailing training methods. Also, it should be noted that upgrading your ship does not grant sailing experience, it grants construction experience. You'll notice a few things here, the first being a filter for sorting, which is currently set to sort by level, and then a color-coded key on the right. These are color-coded specifically to make certain items more distinguishable. Let me go over them. First up is yellow, which means beta level adjusted. This means that in the beta, these levels were shrunk to less than or equal to 30 so that players could playtest them. This will not be their final levels, and unfortunately, you will not get to use a dragon cannon at level 30 sailing. Next up is core ship components in pink and facilities in green. Core components are parts such as the hull, keel, tiller, and mast. These are extremely important and should be a priority to craft because these are what gives your boat stats such as health, defense, and even speed. These are not directly built onto your boat, they are instead built by using the boat schematic board. This is an important distinction because they are likely to scale in cost based on ship size, which we'll get to that in a moment. Facilities are directly built onto your boat. These are things like cannons, salvaging hooks, and fishing nets. I predict that these are going to be a static cost across all sizes of ship. In blue, we have activities/points of interest, being ports, tasks, shipwrecks, and Barracuda trials. These don't have any items associated with them. Some levels were shown in the beta, so I included them. Next up is very simple. Quests are in purple. There are 5 known quests so far. Lastly, I have extrapolated information in orange. This is information that I have made educated guesses on costs for certain recipes. For example, if you look at the teak hull versus the mahogany hull, I didn't specifically look at the mahogany version on the beta, but I did look at the teak. The teak uses lead bars, so it's likely that the mahogany one does as well. Most of the extrapolated costs are not currently obtainable in the game, so not too much harm there if I'm wrong. I mentioned before about boat sizes. We currently have only seen 2 sizes, the raft and the Kandarin small boat. It is extremely likely that we have at least one size of a bigger ship. For those who have followed Sailing's developer blogs more closely, you'll notice that there are 2 key materials missing from this list, and those are the large hull and large keel parts. Circling back to the core ship components, which are highlighted in pink, it is likely that when upgrading larger ships at the boat schematic board, hull parts are replaced with larger hull parts, and the same goes for the keel. The amounts are unknown, but expect all core components to scale in cost for larger ships. Jumping into the materials section, otherwise known as the reason everyone clicked on this video, immediately you'll see 4 main boxes with material costs. Ignore the actual amounts for now and take notice of the 2 columns per in purple. These are for user input. Resources in orange are not currently available in the game, so their values are set to 0 for prepping. You'll notice that the material costs are actually quite low compared to the personal goals I have set. This is because there are a few toggleable options in the top left. The first will apply the hull and keel costs to their respective planks and bars. This is essentially just a plus 80, as each keel or hull part is equal to 5 of their respective bar or plank. So a mahogany hull part is equal to 5 mahogany planks. Therefore, the mahogany hull upgrade, which is 16 hull parts, will cost 80 mahogany planks. This is the same formula for the keel upgrade, costing 80 bars for their respective tier. The next checkmark adds the same logic as the previous one. Back on the topic of larger ships, if we assume a larger ship uses the same recipe requiring 16 large hull parts instead of normal ones, then this essentially adds 400 bars and planks at every tier. And yes, that includes ruined bars. This is because a large hull part is equal to 5 regular hull parts, and once again, this is the same pattern for the keel. You might have noticed that the nails section is extremely high compared to the rest of the materials. This is intended. The first 3, bronze through steel, are very easy to get at the sawmill, so it is fast and cheap to prepare. If you prep too much, you're only losing out on a couple thousand gold. The others, however, are part of one of, if not the most important thing you can do to prepare for sailing. Boat food. Keen-eyed spreadsheet enjoyers will have noticed a bunch of rows I have hidden currently for the sake of the video. Boat food, otherwise known as repair kits, will be how you will heal your damaged boat back up. No different than food your player eats to heal. That being said, the best boat food we can currently prep for is the mahogany and mithril tier at a 3:1 plank to bar ratio. On the beta, you could use these at any sailing level as they did not list a level requirement to use. It is likely that they only have the construction requirement to craft them. You'll notice on the left another cell for input. This is for planning mahogany repair kits. Input as many as you like. I have 1,000 as the default. Click on the checkbox in the top left to add your new inputted values instantly into their respective cells like so, and you will get your new total values. I'm not going to go over everything on the sheet, but you'll notice I have a GP value set to 50 mil. The devs were explicit in stating that the skill will be very expensive, however we do not know how much this will be for Ironman. So I set this as a reasonable amount, as it's a good baseline to have and will cover many of the upfront GP costs that are not listed here, such as plank making, buying the boats, and construction materials like magic stones. That is all I have for the materials sheet for now, and I'm sure much of this will change by launch. I'd like to finish off this section with a clip from the old school RuneScape devs talking about dragon sheets in particular.
Will the drop rates be balanced so players don't spend too much time farming off the boat just to keep up with upgrades?
God, I don't know if I'm going to be slated for chat for saying this, but I feel like that was written by an Ironman. Because any main account's just going to buy. And I feel like the obvious answer is that, like, maybe it's not obvious as well. This isn't just like, hey, I'm going to have a Dragon Axe, and it's a fairly, like, small thing for me to sort of grind for and own, and now I can do the most efficient stuff. It's been very much in our sailing design goals for high-level boats to be expensive. You should see someone with a rosewood boat and go, Jesus Christ, at that cost per plank and that number of planks, and they needed to get all these dragon sheets for the high-level facilities. Damn, that guy's loaded. And that'll be the feeling with those highest level boats. And none of the content on launch will require these high level boats.
A little later in the stream, Husky mentions that all sailing content will be completable at the Camphor tier and potentially Mahogany tier. So with this being said, it's unlikely that Ironman will have a maxed boat by 99. And with this reasoning, prepping more of the medium tier resources, meaning Mithril through Rune, will have a higher value. In the next sheet, I have some added tertiary, sweatier prep for those who want to go above and beyond. Okay, first thing you need to know about this page is essentially none of this is mandatory for 99 sailing. However, I have these added as a personal prep list / time saves on the way to 99. This is also a reminder that we are trying to limit the amount of time spent not gaining sailing experience. The single most important and only actual mandatory item on this list is the bench with lathe, as this is used to create the new repair kits, as well as hull and keel parts. Quite literally, you can make this right now in under 2 minutes. Go do it, it's super fast. The next few items are all about speeding up acquisition of the new ores and logs. For example, the crystal tool seed being interchangeable between crystal axe and crystal pickaxe is incredibly useful and a great all-around item to have. I've listed a bunch of mining enhancers here, and while we don't currently know if any of them work on the new ores, it is likely some will, and most accounts probably have these already. The log basket might be the second most important item on this list, as the new trees are expected to be in more remote locations, and being able to essentially double your inventory will speed up the gathering process significantly. I didn't specifically go out on the beta to find the tree locations, but in the final links tab, which I'll get to in a moment, there will be a sailing world map that will show some of the potential locations. Nature offerings are something most people probably don't even know exist, but these give a whopping 50 to 60% chance at getting an extra log on successful chop, effectively doubling the rate at which you can harvest logs. I highly recommend these. Sawmill vouchers are for the poor. If you don't have a lot of raw cash or you have surplus animal bark, you can buy sawmill vouchers. These are essentially a free plank, and the new planks have quite a cost to them. Steel cannonballs are the exact same ones we currently use in the Dwarf multi-cannon. If you plan on doing any ship combat, getting a surplus of these is likely a good idea. We will not get access to the faster cannonball smithing forge until 81 sailing. So best case, you have a bunch of cannonballs for sailing. Worst case, you have a bunch of cannonballs for other stuff like Slayer. Next up is some tinfoil hat business, and this involves the new seeds that make the new cloths for the mast and sail upgrade. There is currently no known information on how to acquire these seeds, but it is likely that they are added to a few different loot tables that currently exist, such as Master Farmers. Or, in the case for those who like to gamble, seed packs. I recommend not acquiring the packs ahead of time, and instead turn in the spirit seeds and type points after the full release. You're probably surprised to see point boosting here. However, I play a limited defense account, which might not get access to Frost Dragons. Therefore, I will stack Slayer points and set up a Worm blocklist to get Strike Worms, a new Slayer monster that are locked behind a task. These, along with Frost Dragons, are the only two known sources for Dragon Sheets. Lastly, we have a section of really minor time saves / general quality of life stuff you can do. For example, you can pre-break the hops patches with auto weed for the new seeds. This will separate the nerds from the bigger nerds. Setting up a bank layout such as this is highly advised, as I would wager a large majority of viewers have a messy bank. You can also move your POH layout around to have the workbench closer to the spawn tile for more effective crafting. That's it for this section for now, and once again, it is very likely that I will add more things to this, so potentially bookmark and check back for any updates. The final sheet is some extra links for those who are more curious about sailing. One of them even contains literally every single Twitch stream, podcast, blog post, and poll about sailing. I also have a link to the VergeMagazine article on the MCM Comic Con stage, and as well as a sailing world map for those who want to see what the new map will look like. Figment from the future here, I've also added a changelog sheet so you can see when I make changes and what those changes are. Thank you everybody for watching, and if you like this style of content, learned something, or are even just happy to have a baseline guide, feel free to click the buttons. That's all for now. Enjoy!